And this is what we are saying. Something can be done about it. And so many people can be saved from this. So many millions can be saved from it if something is done about it.
After being hit by the car, the doctors told me that he had such severe injuries, they didn't know if he would live through the night.
There are no words to explain the pain you feel when you are on the brink of losing a child.
I think numbers are numbers, but when you look into the face, into the eyes of a young woman clutching onto her child and knowing that she has to survive because this baby desperately needs her, you know that you can't step away from not doing anything to prevent something like this from ever happening again. And the answer is so simple. It is right there for us to solve.
We find that these tragic deaths are absolutely unnecessary. They are preventable. I'm absolutely thrilled with the Make Roads Safe campaign. And what that campaign first and foremost has to do is help make everybody aware that there are solutions. What's important in an issue like this is that people who know, the engineers who are experienced, the analysts, the public health specialists that work on these issues, bring their voice to bear. Speak up. That's why this campaign is so important.
The fact is that people thought that it was insoluble. People thought that the carnage on the roads was simply a result of random accidents and not something that could be remedied by public action. So to get the United Nations to commit to a decade of action with an achievable objective of cutting in half the number of people who die on our roads, well, we can actually do something about it.
This UN Decade of Action for Road Safety provides good policies. We have good tools, using helmet and the seat belts. We have also good knowledge. We have to build safer roads. We can't stop this.
In the UN, in Moscow, in a ministerial level meeting, we pushed forward this, we launched a decade of action, but it is here, it is right here on the streets that we need the action to take place. And I just came from the hospital, and what I witnessed today, I wouldn't wish to see again. I believe in the decade of action for road safety because I know it will save millions and millions of lives.
And all these children have been the beneficiaries of a sustained international and national effort to nurture them, to keep them healthy, to educate them. Millions of dollars are spent on all of these areas, inoculating them, educating them. As soon as these children leave this playground, they're at risk. The roads in this city and in many cities around the world are extremely dangerous for children. The streets aren't designed with children in mind. The authorities don't think about children when they plan for roads and they plan for traffic. Children's rights in terms of traffic have been completely forgotten.
My child was coming home from school when he was hit by a car. I remember that moment. I was terrified. Normally, if I see even a little blood, I'm scared. At that moment, I saw the blood of my child all over his plastic raincoat. I don't know if my boy will ever recover or be able to walk again. It's so sad that children are dying on the roads. The roads on the way to our school are so bad. They have potholes. There are no signs to warn the drivers to slow down. We know the government have many things to do, but we would love them to take action. I'm so happy that my child has survived and that I can continue to see his face. But we worry about his future. We have little hope left.
When children are maimed, when they are killed for these tragic reasons, whether it's the lack of road safety or the lack of access to clean water, it devastates communities and it perpetuates the cycle of poverty. And so breaking all of these causes of unnecessary death and suffering, all of them together are crucial for achieving the Millennium Development Goals and helping communities and nations to break free of the poverty trap.
So we're in Kibera, which is one of the biggest slums in Nairobi. In fact, it's one of the biggest slums in the whole of Africa. Just on the other side of this road, we've got 5 primary schools and 2 secondary schools that kids from the slums on this side of the road have to cross every morning. They're taking their young lives into their hands in order to get a right to education. Every year, donors are pumping hundreds of millions of dollars into the transport infrastructure of Kenya, into roads like this. And many of those donors would say to you, well, this is a great success and it's a sign that our aid is working. This is endangering lives. It's avoidable, it's unnecessary, there are low-cost, low-tech solutions, and it's about time aid donors and governments in countries like Kenya started thinking about putting them into place.
Most politicians think about being successful in their ministries, being successful in being able to produce results. But what kind of results are you producing? Like the Ministry of Transport, it's their duty to protect your life in terms of road safety. And there's so many things that can be done because it is happening on a daily basis, which means today we're talking about it, nothing is being done. Tomorrow we're talking about the same thing. People are still dying, people are still being injured.
A few months ago, the community in this area organized a demonstration where they walked all the way to our government offices to tell them that enough is enough. We need a solution to this road. And as I've said, it was a few months ago. We have not had any response.
I think that our political leaders and our police leaders need to listen to their community. If we just keep talking about the problem and don't make a start, then the problem will never, ever be addressed. What the current call is for a decade of action, and the enforcement of good transport law can bring about some quite quick wins. In my own jurisdiction, we managed to halve the deaths on our roads over a decade. So some of the targets that the global community is setting are achievable.
Make Road Safe campaign is really taking off right now, and the decade of action. And that is truly what is needed, because we understand that at the end of the day, your action will be localized. But if you have an international discussion on this, that will help to bring and lay bare certain basic principles that should help to govern that action at the local level.
The accountability of governments for especially protecting young people and children, and under the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, there is an obligation on governments and ministers to do it. It would be a very solid argument for having a UN agency that will simply allow proper attention to be given to this subject and a proper degree of action then mobilised inside governments in the United Nations to make sure that it is acted upon.
When you are talking about the infrastructure side of the problem, you must have the money in order to address that problem. What we are lacking is this financial support. We need the banks in order to combine the efforts that we are making on the political will, or once we have the banks beside us, I'm sure that we can find the tools in order to solve the problem on road safety.
I think this is a decade in which the action that we are being called upon needs to bring many partners. And this is why we as development banks have partnered together to support this effort. We do lending of approximately $1.5 billion every year for road construction, for new roads, for repair of roads. In Latin America, we lose about 100,000 people every year. So it's the kind of thing that we want to do road safety as a core element.
You know, governments and development banks hold something very special in their hands. It's actually quite easy to take the financial decisions that are required and the policy decisions that are required, which are actually showing how the safe system approach can be adopted anywhere around the world. Action on the basics, seat belts, helmets, safe vehicles, on driver behaviour and speed management, and safe infrastructure.
And I think all these opportunities should not be lost where the ministers responsible for transportation and the private sector will come together to the decade of action. Then it's going to be a phenomenal opportunity for these countries to bring the resources together, to bring the expertise that already exists. And governments need to be making concrete plans and investing the resources that are needed to bring those interventions to bear.
The World Health Organization and the FIA Foundation have launched this Road Safety Fund. The issue of road safety is critically important, and it's critically important for corporations to understand that it is in their economic interest as well as their social interest to make sure they're involved in not just in backing these campaigns verbally, but by putting resources and facilities behind the campaign too.
The Commission is recommending a road safety levy on every new car that's sold, a modest $2 per car. Voluntary, but we hope to be encouraged, which could bring it up to $140 million a year, which would be used to make sure that the new roads in the world are going to be safer, and especially cut down the number of young people who die and are injured.
In thinking about my philanthropy, I always try to find things where you can really make a difference, and particularly things that others haven't focused on. Road safety is one of these growing problems society has. Pretty soon it's going to be the 5th largest killer in the world. And if in this decade we can focus on a few simple things, I think you can increase life expectancy and bring down the fatality rate because there are solutions and they're measurable and they're implementable. It's a solvable problem. You could make an enormous difference in the number of people killed.
It's a hard task for the government to actually just fix the roads, in a proper way, because so many of these accidents happen because of the poor quality of the roads. And if the roads can actually be improved, you can imagine how many people will sleep peacefully in this country. How many people will actually enjoy their life the way it's supposed to be. How many people?
I listened to one of our leaders talk about the statistics, and I just lacked the power to tell him it's not the numbers. For us, it's not numbers. For us right now, it is a person. It's not quantifiable in terms of numbers. The value of a human being cannot be quantified. How about the grandchildren she would have brought home? There should be nobody dying from the road accidents. On my heart, I place the badge representing the decade of action. This is a badge we all need to place on our hearts because this is action that must come from our hearts. Let's move on to a decade of road safety.